Hi there, true crime addicts. It's James Renner with True Crime This Week. Hey, this is a special episode where we do a little investigating into the Amy Lynn Bradley case. It's a very famous cold case, and I'm bringing this to you now because I need a little help identifying some women that you're going to see at the end of this video. And I wanted to share some new info with you that I think gives a deeper perspective into who Amy was and long-term might play into the case itself. I did put up a version of this video earlier, but I did want to make some changes for the record, and I think this will be a better version for posterity. Here we go. About 6 months ago, I began researching the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, one of the most confounding mysteries in the true crime world. I'm currently writing a book about the case, which will come out in a bit, but I'm still tracking down a couple specific leads, and I wanted to reach out to the greater true crime community now for some help. I'm going to give a short overview of the case for those who might be unfamiliar with the story. Then I want to share a couple bits of information that I've uncovered. Finally, I will be sharing some photographs of women that are key to the case, and I hope you can help me identify some of them. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you can jump over to the True Crime This Week YouTube channel to see the photographs if you'd like to help. One other thing before we begin, I think this is going to be quite a popular case in the next couple years. There's currently a Netflix special being produced about the case, and they have uncovered some of the pieces of information that I have, some of the same info. You're going to meet the family as well as those close to Amy at the time of the disappearance, and it will change the way we all see the case, I think. From my experience, I can tell you that the Netflix production is being run by solid people who have the best intentions in mind. I think it's going to be really, really good. Some background. Amy Lynn Bradley was 23 years old when she disappeared in the Southern Caribbean on March 24th, 1998. She was from Chesterfield, Virginia, outside Richmond, and had just graduated from Longwood University with a phys ed degree. She was planning to start a new job at her uncle's computer business, and she'd recently moved into a new apartment with a new little dog. Her parents, Ron and Iva, worked in insurance at the time, and Ron had done so well that year that the company awarded him and a few others with a free cruise aboard the Royal Caribbean ship Rhapsody of the Seas. At the time, the Rhapsody was the largest cruise ship in the world, but that would only last for a couple months. Today, it's considered a small cruise ship compared to the floating cities that have been built since. It held around 2,000 passengers. Ron and Iva decided to buy tickets for their children as well. That would be Amy and her brother Ron Jr., who everyone simply calls Brad. He was 21 at the time. A quick word about Amy's family before we get further into this. I've gotten to know Iva very well, and I've met Ron and Brad too. They're wonderful people, truly good souls. These people love their children, and the family was more like a group of friends than anything else. In many of these stories, the narrator will tell you that the victim was perfect to a fault or lit up the room. As a journalist, I've never known that to be true, until now. I've spoken to a dozen of Amy's close friends, and everyone who knew her talked about how full of life she was. In any friend group, there's that one person who was, kind of pulls everybody together, the cog in the wheel. That was Amy. She was full of life, full of adventure, and as hard as I tried, and I tried hard, I couldn't find a single bad thing she'd ever done to anybody. Like her mother, she loved people hard. So the family goes on this cruise in March of 1998. They leave out of San Juan and stop at Aruba for a day before the ship heads towards the Dutch island of Curaçao, which is only about 65 nautical miles. As the ship traveled through the Southern Caribbean, Amy and Brad attended a Mardi Gras party in the Viking Lounge, which is it's like the top floor of that cruise ship. As luck would have it, a private videographer was there that night getting B-roll for a video he was producing for another group of passengers. And he captured Amy on the dance floor. You can find those videos online, actually. And you can see her dancing with a man named Alistair Douglas, who worked as the bass player for the ship's house band, the Blue Orchid. Alistair is better known by his nickname, Yellow. That night, he was working as the DJ for the party, but he would put on these kind of long, extended songs so that he had time to go out into the floor and dance with Amy. And when I say dance, it's what us kids from the 90s would call grinding. He was grinding against her. And the party went late into the night. Now, going back, you need your key card. The way the doors work on the ship, you need your individual key card. It has your name on it. And you swipe it into the slot, and the door unlocks, you go in. So there's a computer system that logs every time somebody goes back to their room. And that's how we know that Brad returned to the family room at 3:35 a.m. and Amy followed 5 minutes later. Now, just a little bit more about those doors. Like I said, it logs when you go in by individual. It never logs when you go out. Around 5:15, 5:30 in the morning, Ron Bradley woke up and looked out to the balcony and saw Amy sitting on a deck chair. You could see the bottom half of her body and her legs, and she was wrapped up in a blanket. She liked to sleep out there, and she had a late night. She was snoozing. Ron went back to sleep, and about a half an hour later, he woke up as the ship was pulling into port at Willemstad, Curaçao. He looked at the balcony again, and Amy was no longer there. The chair was empty, her cigarettes and her lighter were missing, and the door was ajar. But he had a bad feeling, kind of father's intuition, and he went looking for her, thinking maybe she was up on the deck watching the ship come in. But she wasn't there, and Ron has been searching for his daughter ever since. And that's the mystery. That's the nutshell of the mystery. There's lots more there. As the years went by, it became very complicated, but that's the central mystery. And to this day, there are two camps of thought in Amy's case. One, she was drunk and accidentally fell overboard sometime early in the morning. Or two, Amy was forced into a human trafficking situation in Curaçao, where prostitution and human trafficking continue to this day. As crazy as that might sound on the surface, there is some circumstantial evidence, some compelling evidence that gives this theory some credence. For instance, there have been several really good sightings of Amy over the years, but there's a little more to it that I want to get to at the end. Personally, I don't yet know what to think. I haven't made up my mind either way, but I think I'm getting closer to an opinion. So the new stuff. Earlier this year, I stumbled upon some information about Amy around the same time the producers of the Netflix documentary found it. And there was a discussion about the best way to handle the situation and move forward and be respectful of everybody involved. It's tricky, but I think it's important to share. Amy was bisexual, but she preferred women. And from what I can find, she understood that she was bisexual very early on in life. There was the occasional boyfriend, but the close, long-term relationships she had were all with women. She had come out to her parents during college, and she was happy about the choices she was making. I think it's important to share this information at this time for several reasons. At the top of that list is the fact that one of her former partners and the person she had just gotten back with, Molly McClure, has had to mourn Amy quietly and privately for 26 years, and now she's decided to be a little more public. It's time the world knew about her. Amy had a few long-term relationships with women beginning in high school. In college, she came out to her chosen family of friends and shared a dorm with her partner at the time. Later, she got together with Molly, who she'd met in high school, and from everyone I spoke to, it's very likely that she would still be with Molly today if she hadn't disappeared on the ship. Now, I've gotten to know Molly well. I consider her a friend. She's earnest and caring and creative and just so very accepting. At the time, she and Amy had separated due to some youthful indiscretions, which likely occurred because of their long-distance relationship. Molly had just moved to Kentucky to accept a job. During the time they were apart, Amy would write to Molly constantly, trying to win her back. And the day before Amy left to fly to San Juan, they reunited. Now, to understand Molly is to better understand Amy, and I plan to tell you much more about her in the book I'm writing. I'm sure you'll meet her in the Netflix special coming up too. What I'm trying to convey is that Amy had love in her life when she went missing, and a lot of reasons to come home. Now, I could use your help bringing some closure to this case. I mentioned there's some circumstantial evidence that Amy was taken off the ship that day in Curaçao and secreted into a human trafficking operation. One of the main pieces of evidence for this are pictures of an escort who worked in the Southern Caribbean a couple years later. At the time, there was a popular resort on Margarita Island that was run by a company called Affordable Adult Vacations, which sold week-long trips to their brothels for the discount price of $2,700. In 2004, their website showcased several of their top escorts. One of these photos showed a woman who went by the name Jazz, and many believe that she bears an uncanny resemblance to Amy Bradley. Here's her photograph. Now, either this is Amy or it isn't, but nobody so far has been able to identify the woman in this photo, and nobody has been able to find the other escorts who worked for Affordable Adult Vacations. So I'm asking for your help. Someone out there knows one of these women, and those women might know Jazz. Take a look at these models, and if you know the identity of any of these women, I'd sure like to know. And I'm sure police would like to know as well. These women would likely now be in their late 40s, early 50s, and would have lived or made trips to the Caribbean about 20 years ago. Please do not share their real names online. We're not about shaming sex workers, and if this is a human trafficking operation, they would be victims as well. I think with the volume of women who worked for Affordable Adult Vacations at the time, at least one of these women can be located today. There's a lot more I plan to share with you in the coming months. Recently I took a trip to on the Rhapsody of the Seas, and I visited Curaçao and took a lot of video of my journey, including footage from inside the stateroom where the Bradleys stayed and on the balcony where she was last seen. In the meantime, if you knew Amy or you have any information about what happened on that cruise, please contact me at jameswrenner@gmail.com. More soon.